Hi friends, let me tell you a story. A friend of mine recently visited Shanghai, and he can't believe what is happening to the so-called Pearl of the Orient, 东方之珠. He sent me a photo from Nanjing West Road, once packed with people, tourists, neon lights blazing. Now, empty, silent. You could hear a delivery scooter cough from 2 blocks away. China's propaganda loves to call Shanghai a world-class financial hub. Well, if this is a hub, it is now a hub of despair. And today I'll show you 5 undeniable signs that Shanghai's economy isn't just slowing down, it is bleeding out. By the end of this video, you'll see why the so-called future of China is looking more like a ghost of its past. Sign number 1. Storefronts are vanishing everywhere. Let's start with what anyone can see with their eyes. Empty shops everywhere. I remember walking through Shanghai back in the day. And I mean really back in the day, when you couldn't even elbow your way through the clouds at Xujiahui on a Saturday night. The neon lights, the street food smells, the chatter. Shanghai felt really alive. It felt like the beating heart of China's so-called economic miracle. Now, it feels like a mock, right? My friend told me that you can walk through Baolian Central Shopping Plaza or Xujiahui today, and it's like playing a depressing game of guess who used to be here? That trendy bubble tea shop you loved, gone. The hot pot place where you had your birthday dinner last year, closed. And here's what really hits you. Even the icons of old Shanghai are dying. Take Chaojiapeng, a legendary restaurant that opened in 1909, back when the Qing dynasty still technically existed. This place survived the wars, revolutions, even Mao's disastrous Cultural Revolution. For over a century, it stood as a symbol of Shanghai's resilience and taste for life. But in 2025, it couldn't survive Xi Jinping's new era. Think about that for a second. A restaurant that made it through Japanese bombings and communist purges was finally taken out by a collapsing economy and declining foot traffic. If that doesn't scream system failure, I don't know what does. And it's not just Chaojiapeng. Other famous eateries like Jiayou Hao Mian, once a must-visit noodle chain, are disappearing too. These aren't just business closing. They are cultural funerals. CCP used to brag that if you open a store in Shanghai, you will be rich overnight. Now, it's more like if you open a store, you'll be bankrupt by next week. Shanghai isn't the land of opportunity anymore. It's the land of for lease signs. Now, sign number 2. The great exodus of foreign companies and talent. Shanghai used to call itself China's gateway to the world. It wasn't just China's richest city. It was China's face to the global economy. Walking down the Bund felt like strolling through a living, breathing version of the World Expo. You would hear English, French, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese all in the same coffee shop. International schools were packed with expat kids. Foreign executives were wining and dining clients in Michelin-starred restaurants. Multinationals saw Shanghai as Asia's most cosmopolitan business hub, rivaling Singapore and Hong Kong. But that was yesterday. Today, the gateway has slammed shut. The expats are gone, and they're taking the global prestige with them. In the last few years, foreign companies have been quietly and sometimes loudly heading for the exits. American Chamber of Commerce surveys show that over half of US firms are slashing investments or outright pulling out of China. European companies report the same trend, with German manufacturers leading a slow-motion evacuation. Major firms like Apple suppliers and consulting giants are moving key operations to Singapore and India. Why? Because the risk in China has become unmanageable. Arbitrary rates and fines on consulting firms and auditors, data laws so strict they make doing business legally impossible, and growing nationalism where every foreign business is treated like a spy. What kind of financial hub kicks out the very companies that made it global? It's like Las Vegas banning tourists and then wondering why the casinos are empty. And even more visible than the corporations leaving are the people. In 2022, Shanghai's strict COVID lockdown tracked millions inside their apartments for 2 straight months. And many foreign residents said, never again. International schools that once had long wait lists are now reporting mass withdrawals. Some are shutting entire campuses because there simply aren't enough foreign students. The once bustling expat enclaves of Xintiandi now feel like ghost towns. The high-end bars and international restaurants have either closed or shifted entirely to domestic customers. Shanghai, which used to be a city where foreign talent came to build careers and new lives, now feels hostile and paranoid. The message is clear. You as a foreigner are not welcome here. The exodus isn't just an accident of economics. It's political by design. Xi Jinping's regime has been stoking nationalism to show up its power. Foreign teachers are under surveillance. International churches are being shut down. Work visas are harder to get than ever, with arbitrary rejections and delays. Foreign executives live in constant fear of arbitrary detentions. We've already seen multiple cases where foreign nationals were suddenly arrested on vague espionage charges, and often used as leverage in political disputes. Would you move your family to a place where one misunderstanding could land you in a secret prison? Neither would they, so they're leaving. And here is why it matters. When foreign companies and talent leave China, they don't just take jobs and investment. They take credibility. They take the international trust that Shanghai spent decades trying to build. A financial hub isn't just skyscrapers and stock tickers. It's a network of people and institutions that believe in the rule of law and fair play. Without that trust, Shanghai just becomes another, Chinese city, an authoritarian regime. And once those connections are gone, they're almost impossible to rebuild. Just look at Hong Kong after the CCP crackdown. The expats didn't come back. And the same fate is now hitting Shanghai hard. And this exodus creates shockwaves throughout the city. The domino effect. Empty luxury apartments because expats are gone leads to housing market tanks even faster. Global firms leave leads to office towers sit vacant, right? High-end restaurants and bars close leads to service jobs vanish, worsening the unemployment crisis. It is all interconnected. And once the international lifeblood drains out, Shanghai's entire economy starts to decay. Shanghai was the flagship city of China's opening up under Deng Xiaoping. It symbolized the promise that China could integrate with the world while becoming rich and modern. Now, under Xi Jinping, it symbolizes the reverse, closing off, turning inward, and alienating the very global partners that made its rise possible. When you see foreign firms selling off assets at fire sale prices and entire neighborhoods of international residents disappearing, you're not just witnessing economic slowdown. You are witnessing the death of a dream. The dream of Shanghai as China's shiny, open, modern city. Now, sign number 3, Shanghai's skyscrapers are emptying out. The skyline. That has always been China's pride poster, the CCP's favorite social media filter. The Shanghai World Financial Center, the one shaped like a giant bottle opener. And of course, the Shanghai Tower, a $2 billion monument to China's economic rise. On paper, this city screams wealth and power. Foreign investors fly in, take selfies from the bond, and think, wow, this is just like New York, but with better xiaolongbao dumplings. But here's the dirty little secret. Behind those glittering glass windows, nothing, just empty space, echoing with the sound of economic despair. Numbers don't lie. Grade A office vacancies have exploded to more than 20%, the highest in 10 years. Think about that. Shanghai is supposed to be the financial heart of China. Yet 1 out of every 5 offices is now sitting empty. You could literally play hide and seek on some of these empty floors and never get found. And it's not just about vacancies. Rents are collapsing too. Take the Jinmao Dasa, Jinmao Tao. A few years ago, they charged about 30 yuan per square meter. Now, they're begging people to take space at 19 yuan, a 30% drop, and still no one is biting. Some landlords are so desperate, they're practically paying you to move in. No, seriously, they're offering free rent for months. All you pay are utilities and property fees. Imagine walking into a luxury mall and being told, take whatever you want. Just cover the electricity bill. That's how bad it's gotten. This isn't just a blip. caused by the pandemic or temporary headwinds, as Beijing likes to say. This is a structural problem. Shanghai used to thrive because multinationals were expanding, right? Chinese tech firms were booming, and startups were propping up like mushrooms, after the rain. But now, foreign companies are leaving because they don't trust the CCP anymore. Domestic companies are downsizing or going fully remote. Startups, they're either pivoting to survive or dead on arrival. The whole office tower economy, built on the fantasy of economic expansion, is collapsing. And no amount of propaganda, ribbon cutting ceremonies can hide that. You've probably heard of China's ghost cities, those empty apartment complexes in the middle of nowhere. Well, Shanghai has a new twist on that concept, and I call it ghost skyscrapers. Shiny futuristic towers, but completely deserted. I heard a story from a friend who works in finance. He had a meeting on the 40th floor of one of these prestigious buildings. When he got there, the entire floor was just dark. And the only sound, his own footsteps and the hum of the AC. And he said it felt like walking into the set of a post-apocalyptic movie. Except this was downtown Shanghai we're talking about, not some abandoned coal town in the Midwest. Of course, the CCP will spin this as, strategic transformation. Oh, sure, like 50% rent discounts is totally part of your master plan, right? Maybe next week they'll start offering a free rice cooker with every lease. Sign a 5-year contract and get a free electronic scooter, limited time offer. Now, why this matters? When skyscrapers go empty, it's not just about landlords losing money. It's a signal that the entire economy is in trouble. No new companies means no new jobs. No new jobs means no new consumers. And that means no growth. It's a death spiral that starts at the top of the skyline and just walks its way down to the empty streets. The towers, the office towers, are empty today. Tomorrow, so will be the shops, the restaurants, and eventually the city itself. Now, sign number 4, the housing market is still crashing. For years, Shanghai's housing market was like a rigged casino. And not just any casino, but one where the house always wins and you, the player, are practically forced to gamble. It didn't matter if you were a newlywed couple, a white-collar banker, or a retired grandma. Everyone was told the same thing. If you don't buy property in Shanghai now, you'll never afford it later. So people leverage their entire lives, borrowing from banks, family, even loan sharks, just to get a tiny apartment with a view of someone else's dirty laundry. Real estate wasn't just an asset class in China. It was a national religion. And Shanghai was its holy temple. Buying a home in Shanghai wasn't just a personal milestone. It was proof of your self-worth, your security blanket, and your son's future, rolled into one overpriced concrete box. But today, that temple has cracks all over its foundation. Second-hand housing transactions in Shanghai have plummeted 20% year over year. And that's the official number, which probably means the real decline is much worse. Prices have crashed back to 2015 levels, wiping out a decade of capital gains. I spoke to a friend who bought a condo in 2021, right before the peak. He paid 8 million yuan, or over 1 million US dollars, for a two-bedroom unit in what was considered a prime neighborhood in Shanghai. Today, his real estate agent told him the best offer he's getting is 5.5 million yuan. That is a 2.5 million yuan loss on paper. And it's still not selling. The guy is so stressed that he's finally losing weight successfully. And even the high-end market, once considered bulletproof, is collapsing. In Huangpu district, home to some of Shanghai's most prestigious properties, luxury condos are sitting unsold for years. One high-end apartment I followed online recently has been slashed in price 3 times and still can't find a buyer. Imagine walking into a LV store and seeing a 70% off sign and people still refusing to buy. That's how bad it is in Shanghai. Why? Because confidence is gone. Buyers aren't just broke, they've lost faith. They look at these gleaming towels and think, if prices are falling now, why not wait another year or two or forever? Nobody wants to catch a falling knife, and this knife is still dropping fast. Now, sellers are just in full-blown panic mode. They're slashing prices, engaging in bidding wars with each other, even taking massive losses just to get out before the next job. Picture this: 2 families in the same building, both trying to sell their units. Family A lists at 5 million yuan. Family B panics and drops to 4.8 million. Now, Family A freaks out and cuts to 4.6 million. Pretty soon, it's just a race to the bottom, like a clearance sale at a bankrupt department store. It's humiliating, but this is the new normal of Shanghai real estate. And here's why this matters. China's economy is basically built on property speculation. For decades, the government pushed this housing frenzy because rising home prices gave people the illusion of wealth, right? When your apartment doubled in value, you felt rich. You spent more, borrowed more, and kept the economic engine running. Now that illusion is gone. When home values fall, people stop spending, stop investing, and they start hoarding cash. It's like someone flipped a switch, turning a vicious cycle into a death spiral. And this isn't just about Shanghai either. Shanghai is just the flagship city, the model everyone else follows. If even here the housing market is crashing, smaller cities are in even deeper trouble. Now, here's why this is so explosive. In the US, losing money on a house is painful, but survivable. In China, it is existential. Parents save their entire lives to buy their kid apartment, not for living, but for marriage eligibility. A son without property is considered unmarriageable. So when housing prices collapse, it's not just wealth disappearing, it's social status, even the ability to have a future family. This is why I call it a national religion. And now that faith is breaking. You're going to see rage, despair, and just anger because people feel like they've been sold a bill of goods. Of course, the CCP will never admit this is a crisis. They'll roll out propaganda headline like housing market just undergoes a healthy adjustment for sustainable growth. The truth? They've lost control of the single most important pillar of China's economy. And when that pillar collapses, the whole structure comes crashing down. For years, Shanghai real estate was the ultimate symbol of China's rise. Buying an apartment there wasn't just about shelter. It was a ticket to the middle class, a passport to respectability, a promise of tomorrow. But today, that promise has been broken. The forever up myth is dead. And when a national religion loses its believers, history shows that chaos usually follows. Empty luxury condos, terrified buyers, these are just the warning signs. Shanghai is experiencing the death of a dream. Now, on to sign, I think it's number 5, the brutal job market. I used to think of Shanghai's job market as Disneyland for ambitious young grads. Bright lights, endless opportunities, the promise of a better tomorrow. You just had to work hard enough to grab it. Now, it's more like a Black Mirror episode where dreams get crushed by algorithms and everyone's just trapped in a nightmare they can't wake up from. Imagine this. You've spent 4 grueling years at Fudan University or Shanghai Jiaoda, top Chinese universities, the elite of the elite. You didn't just study, you sacrificed your youth, endless crane sessions, sleepless nights, pressure from parents, society, all for the golden ticket, a high-paying job in Shanghai. And then finally, graduation day comes. Your parents are crying tears of pride. You're ready to take on the world. And you open up the job listings. And the best offer you can find is 4,000 yuan a month. That is about 550 USD. Barely enough to cover rent, let alone saving for the future. Oh, and your prospective employer, they also want you to speak fluent English, no coding, handle graphic design, and have at least 2 years of relevant work experience. Translation? We want a superhuman, but we'll pay them like an intern. And it gets worse. For decades, Shanghai companies had a certain unspoken rule. Even if they lay you off, they would at least give you severance, a little dignity, a little cushion to survive the storm. Not anymore. I have been hearing stories of companies cutting staff overnight. No warning, no compensation, nothing. One day you're in the office. The next day, your key card doesn't work. And HR ghosts you harder than a bad Tinder date, you know? First time in decades, this level of cold-blooded brutality has become the norm in the city. And these aren't just some like small-time outfits. Some of these companies were once considered the crown jewels of Shanghai's corporate world. And here's the psychological toll. Workers are so terrified of being unemployed that they cling to jobs they hate. I'm talking about the kind of soul-sucking, exploitative positions that make you question your entire existence. But quitting? Forget it. The mindset now is better the devil you know than unemployment. Even if your boss screams at you daily, even if you are being underpaid and mistreated, you stay. Because the outside world just feels like an abyss. You know, Shanghai used to represent upward mobility. You could start as an intern and through grit and talent, climb your corporate ladder into management. That's what fueled the city's energy. This belief that tomorrow will be better than today. But now, that ladder has been pulled up. No matter how hard you work, the promotions aren't there. The salaries are just so low. Even the entry-level positions aren't there anymore. You see this despair in Chinese online forums like Zhihu and Weibo, where young people just vent about their struggles. Posts aren't about like career advice anymore. They're about survival tips. How do I hide my layoff from my parents? Is it okay to work 3 part-time jobs and still live with roommates at 30 years old? Should I just give up and move back to my hometown? These are the posts you see on social media. It's heartbreaking. And it's a ticking time bomb. The tragedy here is overqualification. Shanghai has a flood of highly educated job seekers competing for a shrinking pool of positions. You've got people with master's degrees and flawless resumes fighting over jobs that pay less than a Starbucks barista in the US. We're talking 4,000 to 6,000 yuan per month, which is less than $800. It's not just the pay, it's also the requirements. Employers, like I said, are demanding perfect English, relevant work experience, even physical appearance standards, all for a salary that won't even cover a 20 square meter apartment. The brutal truth is, Shanghai's job market is no longer a launchpad for dreams. The city that once symbolized ambition and opportunity now embodies anxiety and stagnation. When a generation of highly educated young people stop believing in the system, you don't just have an economic problem. You have a social crisis brewing beneath the surface. And welcome to Shanghai 2025, where even the best and brightest are just fighting to survive. Shanghai was once the crown jewel of China's rise. Today, it is a crystal ball showing you that China's future is going down. The government will keep spinning propaganda about recovery and resilience, but the truth is simple. Shanghai isn't just slowing down, it is dying. And when the heart of China's economy stops beating, the whole country better watch out.